Hello YouTube, it's Emma10 here with a help and advice video on tips for tournaments. Now this is just from my own personal experiences and from advice I've had other people give me or I've seen around on the YouTube community, and I just want to obviously share with you guys. I've already done a similar video to this, more like it's actually like how to prepare yourself for tournaments, like what to take with you before, which I'll link down below if you are interested in having a look at that. So anyway, let's get on, and I've got a wee list over here just to keep me right and on track of what it is I want to talk about, so I do apologise if I keep looking over there. So anyway, tips for tournaments. Though there's quite a few tips, and I'm pretty sure some of you guys would want to share your tips and everything down in the comments below as well, which is going to be pretty awesome. But what I would definitely suggest in tips for tournaments is, well, when you first get there, definitely socialise. You know, get to know people, trade, and everything as well, because obviously the more people you get to know, the better relations you can have with them. Like you can make lots of new friends that way. You can actually get to know how they trade, how they sell their cards and everything, and you can also get a lot of insider knowledge about becoming a better duelist, how some deck styles might work and all that sort of thing, and of course create a friendly atmosphere for people to come in and to enjoy themselves and everything. So I would definitely recommend socialising as much as you can. Another thing I would also suggest is making sure you've got food and water or food and drink on you as well. Some tournaments will provide that for you, but even if it's just a small local tournament, it's always best to make sure you've got yourself hydrated in some way, like with water or energy drinks or just fruit juice or anything like that, and also maybe have something prepared in your backpack to eat as well, because as I said, sometimes if you do have a gap between a duel or a match and everything, and you go off to the shops and you take longer than usual, you can maybe miss out on a match and everything. And I've done that from personal experience. I'm Mad for Miniatures. I went out between a match which took a little bit longer than usual, and as a result I was 5-10 minutes late for my next match, but thankfully I didn't get disqualified or anything, just because the guys knew me and they knew I had a long match and I was only just grabbing my lunch because I didn't have anything prepared, unfortunately. Obviously, of course, when you're actually eating, you don't eat during a duel either, because obviously in official tournaments you can actually get very heavily penalised for that. But in a local tournament, of course, it might be different, but it's always better to try not to eat during duels if you can, because it can be distracting and all that. So I suppose that would be there. Next is mobiles. Now, a lot of people tend to use their mobiles for keeping tracks of life points and everything, and most modern mobiles nowadays tend to have a duelist application on them, which is fine and fair enough and everything as well. I mean, again, if it's most local tournaments are okay with that, but it's always a good idea to, again, use pen and paper if you can, and use dice counters and coin counters and everything to keep track of what goes on in the duel, just in case, you know, you happen to get into a disagreement with the opponent about something and you want to backtrack what caused the agreement and how to resolve it and everything. So I would say mobiles are fine and everything, but try to use pen and paper from time to time as well, just so you know you've got it in your head how you do things. So if you do go to like an official big event or anything, then obviously you know how to do it. Next, what else? I think a big key thing, well actually, just to get on to actually being in the duels and that themselves, of course it's always best to greet your opponent in a friendly manner, you know, because obviously if you being grumpy about it, it's just going to obviously lead into not very good things for the rest of the duel and everything. If you handshake the opponent or say hello, be very friendly, very supportive and all, then more than likely you're going to have a great duel. Before you start any duel or in between matches, when you're getting ready for the next match, I find it's always best to pile shuffle the deck a few times. Now what I mean by pile shuffling is, and I'm just using my extra deck here just to give you guys an example, pile shuffling between duels really does decrease the chances of getting bad hands or similar hands from your previous duel. And the way to do it is, say for example, do it in whatever pile you want, and then you just go mix like that, put it all together, and then redo it again. Anyway, well, there's no real way of pile shuffling cards or anything like that. Everybody's different and everything. It's just what I personally feel is the best for obviously not having very bad hands in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! As said, that way you decrease your bad hands or chances of bad hands, or even your similar hands from a previous duel that could have won a game for you, and that way, you know, people don't accidentally say you're a stacker or a cheat or anything. But sometimes you will still get bad hands even if you power shuffle really well, but nothing can be done about that because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a luck based game as well as skilled. Another thing that's also quite I would definitely suggest doing, I didn't actually start doing this until quite recently after watching some videos about recent cheating events that have been going on in some big tournaments in Yu-Gi-Oh! And that is how to draw a card safely without it accidentally being like a double draw or anything, which again is going to be shown in just a moment. Another thing that's really good for making sure you draw the correct card and you don't accidentally pick up anything extra or anything like that is when you draw, again I'm using my extra deck for this, when you draw, it's a technique I've only started using recently, you draw the card onto the table and slide it up. That way it guarantees you don't accidentally have an extra card, because sometimes when you do draw via this way, you might accidentally pick up a second card. You never know. And in official tournaments and stuff, if a judge catches you or your opponent sees you, they could accuse you of cheating. Of course, nobody wants that. So that way it decreases your chances of accidentally drawing a second card, which could, in a big official tournament, could actually give you a game penalty or a game lost by the judge or whatever. So as I said, that's only something I have personally been doing recently, but it's definitely a good tip that I've learned, and it can be very helpful. Also, during the duel, most of us tend to carry personal belongings, you know, a bag of our deck mat, the deck itself, maybe some money, mobile, everything. Sometimes when you get really concentrated into a duel, the world outside you can cease to exist because you're so concentrated on the duel. And sometimes, sadly, that can be a good opportunity for unfriendly persons to take your personal belongings. So what I would personally recommend is, if you can, wrap it around your feet or the table leg or the chair leg even, and that way if someone does try to take your bag or personal belongings, then they can't do it, because obviously if it tugs on your leg or tugs on your chair, it's going to alert you immediately that someone's tried to do something. And that way it's a safe way to keep your stuff safe. As I said, if it's a local tournament, more than likely this probably won't happen, but official tournaments or YCSs or anything, it is something to keep in mind, because it's a bigger event, there's loads or more people. Most people at these kind of events are honest, and you know, they're good to have friends with and everything, but there will be a few who will be out there just to ruin your day by nicking your stuff. And it's not really fun when you notice your things have been taken and you were so concentrated in the duel, and it's like you can't compete for the rest of the day because all your important documents or trading cards and everything were in that bag. And it really is sad that people would do that. What else is there? Oh yes, another key thing for when you're actually dueling that I would definitely recommend, in truth everybody should really do this, but when you get so used to playing a deck style or playing certain cards, then you tend to automatically know what they're doing and you can get away with it sometimes. But it's always best to thoroughly read your cards. Now I'm really guilty, as I keep saying, I am really guilty of sometimes getting effects and that mixed up, or not reading the cards properly, and hence, you know, changing the game state as it were. I think a very good example I can give to you is my Vanguard of the Dragon being hit by a Solemn Judgment. I didn't read the fact that when the card is sent from the field to the graveyard, it resurrects a normal dragon type monster from either graveyard. I always thought it was when it was sent to the graveyard, you know, via any means. So even including a Solemn Warning or a Solemn Judgment hitting it, means automatically I could get my Blue Eyes White Dragon back from the graveyard. And that changed the game state in that I won the game. And technically I probably shouldn't have won that game, in all honesty, because, you know, it wasn't really fair what happened. In local tournaments, again, you can, most of the time people are friendly enough to, you know, maybe say, okay, that was a mistake, you can take it back, or that sort of thing. But in official events, of course, you can get into severe trouble for that. So it's always best to try and thoroughly read your cards, make sure you know and understand what they're saying, what they're doing, how the effects go off and everything, because obviously if it's a genuine mistake, it's a genuine mistake, but some people will use this sort of thing to their advantage, you know, card sharking and cheating and all that, sadly. And, you know, and deliberately try to change the game state into a win for them. Whereas if it's a genuine honest mistake, it's a genuine mistake, but sometimes, even if you do make a genuine honest mistake, the judge's words are final if you get a penalty for it, if you get a warning or something for it. It sometimes does seem a bit unfair in the big official events, but that's just how it goes, unfortunately. Also, in continuing with reading your cards properly, is if you've seen a card of the opponent that you've never seen before and don't understand it fully, even if the opponent explains it to you fully, it's always best to ask if you can check and double read it for yourself. That way you can fully understand the effect and everything and make sure that the opponent's putting it through right, because again, it's with card sharking and things like that, some people will try to force through effects that aren't really written on the card or anything. And if you feel that the effect isn't the correct one that's written on the card done by the opponent, then obviously you raise your hand, you call the judge over, or or the tournament organizer, or just someone who's got authority to say, you know, that's it with this ruling, you know, end of story, basically. In turn, if you have any problems at the tournament, regardless of what it is, if someone's being nasty to you, if your stuff gets nicked, if there's a problem with resolving card effects or resolving game states or anything, always call the judge over. Or if it's local, sometimes in local tournaments you can have quite a few people who are very knowledgeable on the game, like really expert in the game, but aren't actually judges themselves, like judging that tournament, or you know, are just judges just playing in that game. You know, if they're not busy, then obviously you can call them over and double check what happens and everything. I mean, there's been a couple of times in the old tournaments that I used to go to where the judges were busy sorting stuff out and I got stuck on something, so I would call maybe, say, somebody else over who was really knowledgeable in rulings and stuff, and they would explain to me how it would work and all that. So people like Dr. Cyanide Nikros, Dave, Drew and Nick and all that, they're really, really amazing duelists. They're very, very experienced in the game, and they've got an intimate knowledge of the rulings and all that. And if they weren't busy in the duel and I needed help in, you know, resolving effects or understanding the game state, then I could call one of them over if the judges were busy. Of course, in actual official tournaments, you can't do that, but so what you have to do is actually call the proper floor judges and all that over, and then in turn they can go to the head judge and decide, and the head judge has the final say on how a game state goes or how the rulings are or the effects in that go, depending. What else is there? I don't think there's anything else. I think if I was to give you one or two actual very personal things for tournaments is, if there's quite a big gap, say if you finish your game really early and you've got like 40 minutes left on the timer or something and you don't know what to do, take something that keeps you entertained. Now, I wouldn't recommend like a DS or something like that, because obviously, again, it's an expensive item, but say a book or a comic or a magazine, or if you like to doodle, then doodle or anything like that. You know, take something personal to keep you entertained if you're not in the mood for trading, or you don't want to trade, or you've already done your trading and all that. You know, something personal to keep you entertained, and there's nothing wrong with that. I sometimes take books with me because I love reading, and that helps to pass time between that and the next duel. Another thing that I would personally recommend, if you can do it, is maybe every match or so, if you've got a moment, go outside for a bit of fresh air if you can, because sometimes, especially if you're in a stuffy room, sometimes you can get really frazzled or not in top game mode, if you like, for the next match. So going outside, maybe just for a couple of minutes to have a breath of fresh air, can really clear your head and get you invigorated for the next match. And that's just from my own personal experience, because that's what I tended to do at the previous tournaments as well, was go outside quite a bit after I did my trading and all that, and take a breath of fresh air You know, some people might want to go out just to have a quick smoke or something. You know, depends on people's personal taste and personal ways of doing things, I suppose. Is there anything else? No, I think that's all I can think of for my tips for tournaments and stuff like that anyway. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and I hope you find it useful if you are going to tournaments and everything. If you have any personal tips you want to share with how you deal with tournaments or deal with events or certain things that happen at tournaments, you know, post down in the comments below. I'd really love to hear from you about that. And I don't think there's anything else to say on this topic. So till then, take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye!